My parents funded my sister's lavish wedding, ignored mine, and 8 years later they lose their house. Now they demand I pay them back. My sister and I have never been close. Other than the huge age gap, my parents have always treated us differently. Before she was born, Dad lost his job and we had to rent out our house and move into a small place. We had to make a lot of adjustments with not many resources. Dad was trying to find a new job, but it was getting tough, so both Mom and Dad started putting in applications. Soon enough, Mom got a call from an old contact from when she used to work, saying that he is starting a new venture and that he would like trusted people to work for his organization. At that time, the pay wasn't much, but it was certainly more than what we had going. Mom immediately accepted. 6 months had passed and Dad was finally hired. We were doing better, but we had to pay off quite a few people because my parents had borrowed money while we were still at the house. 3 months after Dad lost his job, we moved out and rented it. They realized that it would take time for things to get back to normal, so we decided to keep renting the house. A year later, Mom was pregnant. Things had settled down now, but they decided that rent money would help cover the expenses for my mom and the baby. For the time being, we moved into another slightly bigger apartment. My parents knew the value of money now, so they were careful with it. In all this time that had passed, my communication with my parents had turned to hi, good morning, and bye. They were so worried about money that it was all they talked about. The first time we shifted, I used to wait for them to come back. First, it was only Dad who came back late, then it was Mom. When they were back home, they were so tired that they wouldn't even glance at me. If I tried talking to them or going in for a hug, they would get irritated and push me off. I understood that my parents were stressed, but I think they could at least afford to smile at me. A small one would have done too. I basically bathed myself, did the laundry by hand, made sandwiches when I was hungry, and walked myself to school. I tried to be as independent as I could. They, on the other hand, hadn't even noticed I was trying my best to help them out. After we shifted a second time, all focus was on Mom since she was pregnant. He tried to keep her as comfortable as he could. Mom didn't start working, but she didn't work as late. I was happy that she was pregnant. I thought at least I would have another sibling to keep me company. I tried to make my feelings known, but Mom was easily irritated. She would tell me to go away anytime I tried to make conversation with her. Dad worked all day. He would come home later than Mom. When he did come home, he would always get her or the baby something. He would just ignore me, saying he was tired. I was basically a stranger in my own home. I used to cry myself to sleep. Even if they heard me, they would ignore me and shut their door. 3 months after my dad lost his job, I was shifted to a public school. They hadn't enrolled me back in my previous one, and after Mom became pregnant, I knew they weren't going to. I wanted to go back to my old school and friends. I wanted to meet them. It was so lonely at home, and at school nobody really spoke to me. I just wanted to talk to someone. As Mom's bump got bigger and bigger, they wouldn't even acknowledge my presence. It was as if I wasn't even there. I was sad and hurt. They wouldn't listen, so I couldn't even do anything about it. Soon, Mom was in her last trimester and days away from giving birth. Both my parents didn't have any family on either side. If they did, I didn't know about them. I was left alone at home for days while Mom was at the hospital. I didn't complain, though. I just wanted her to be okay, and I wanted to see the baby. After they came home, they were busy. The baby was always in either of their arms. I asked if I could see her, and Dad let me into their room. Mom was breastfeeding her and got agitated. She told me to get out. Dad didn't say anything. I didn't get to spend time with my sister or hold her. Mom was very protective of her. Dad at least tried a couple of times to let me be near her, but Mom didn't let it happen. It was as if she hated me, and I didn't understand why. I could clearly see that she loved my sister. A few months after Mom was able to recover, my parents decided to move into the house we owned. I had a slight hope that after we moved back, things would go back to normal. We moved in, and as time went on, their attitude towards me got worse. I eventually had a breakdown in front of them while they were in the hall. I woke up my sister, and she started crying. Now all of them were angry at me, and I couldn't stop crying. Dad dragged me back up and locked me in my room, telling me to shut up. I fell asleep crying. They didn't want me, and I realized that though they owned a house, it wasn't very big. It had only 2 bedrooms, so they put me in the attic to make room for my sister. I had to clean the attic myself. It was horrible up there and so cold. On top of that, it was the darkest place ever. I hated it. There was no wiring in there, so there was no possibility of light. I would go up there, and when my parents had gone to bed, I would go back down and sleep on the couch. They had caught me a few times, but didn't really care, as long as I was out of their way. As I grew older, I got a job. They didn't know about it. My first check, I wanted to get them something in hopes that they would like me, but I wasn't that naive and talked myself out of it. Instead, I just collected it. I didn't buy myself anything either. Soon enough, it was time for university. Though I had little money, it wasn't enough to cover the university fees, food, and living costs. I tried bringing it up, but they clearly declined, saying they didn't have much. They were even surprised I had brought up university. All their focus was on my sister, and I didn't blame her for that. Even growing up, she wasn't rude to me. We didn't talk, and I didn't hold a grudge either. It was useless. My parents hadn't let us bond, and even when she would come to me when she was younger, or I would go to her, it would be too much drama, and I couldn't take the heat. It was better that I stayed away. They acted as if I would harm her. I had to suck it up, though. My only chance of going to university was if I got sponsored by a full scholarship. I was a smart kid. I was hoping I would get it. I used to go to my neighbor's house and use his laptop. He was new to the area and had a daughter. She was a year younger than me. I applied for a whole lot of scholarships. I managed to get into a good university, but I couldn't get a full scholarship. I had to cover my own living and food costs. The university was 2 states away, but I knew I could get there. I managed to get in contact with the cafe owner and ask for work. She was an older lady and was very sweet. Apparently, she had been there for quite some time. Soon after I moved there, my parents didn't really care. If I hadn't told them, they wouldn't even know I was gone. I didn't know where I was going to live, as everything was very expensive and needed a down payment. Once I got there, I asked the owner of the cafe, who was an old lady, if I could crash there while I found myself a place to stay. She took pity on me and told me there was a room upstairs where she stayed, and I could stay with her, but she would cut it off my paycheck. I was honestly just happy I didn't have to sleep on the streets. I had very little cash left, and I didn't want to spend it on a motel. While there, I took on a few more jobs in my free time. The old lady was clearly worried about me, which surprised me. I hadn't seen that expression directed at me in so long. Slowly, I settled down. I got through university and managed to land a position through pre-placements. That was probably the first time I bought myself remotely expensive clothes. It was for the interview. My worn-out hoodie wouldn't do. After I got my offer letter, the first person I told was the cafe owner. She had helped me out when I needed my parents to. I would always be grateful to her for that. She was rejoicing with me. She hugged me and kissed me, telling me that she was so proud of me. I cried that day. She had become family to me, and I loved her. She helped me move after I graduated. I needed to find a place closer to my job, and she came with me to help me decide. Even after I got settled there, I went down at least once or twice a month to visit her. We spoke regularly. I had tried to keep in contact with my parents, but they never answered my calls, not even once. Sometimes my sister would pick up, but it would be an awkward conversation. I eventually stopped calling them. While working there, I made friends. I was an introverted person, but they made an effort to talk to me. They would invite me when they would go out. I would usually decline, but sometimes they would convince me to go. About a year later, the company had given out free tickets for a mini vacation. We could take one person along. I decided to use my vacation days, which I had never used before, and take the only family I knew of, which is the old lady. I called her Auntie. She wasn't old enough to be called Grandma. She had asked me to take somebody else, but I insisted on her coming. All my friends were at the company, and they all had trip tickets. They had asked me who I was bringing along and wanted to meet her, so we planned to go on vacation together. Funnily enough, she was an extrovert and got along well with them. I was still a shy person, and they would drag me around wherever they went. On that trip itself, a guy approached me. My auntie was squealing when that happened and made me go with him. He was visiting here too. I have to give her credit. The man I met there is now my husband. He lived about half an hour from where I worked. When we got back from the trip, he called me up and asked me out. He was a patient man. We dated for 2 months. We're in a relationship for 3 years and now have been married for 4 years. I had invited my parents and sister to my wedding. All of them were a no-show. My then fiancé was aware of my past. He was really angry about what happened. He didn't even want to invite them. A year or 2 later, my sister got married. I was not invited, and that's okay. I saw a few pictures online and congratulated her. It was a lavish wedding. She was around 21 or 22, so I knew she couldn't afford it. Our parents had to have paid for it. I didn't mind. I had moved on and was happy with my life. I was pregnant with our first child, and my husband was elated. He was so excited. His parents had become my parents, and my aunt visited frequently too. Sometimes all of them would stay with us during my pregnancy. Suddenly, one day, my aunt received a letter in my name. I was surprised by who it was. It was my parents. She told me she would bring the letter to me if I wanted. I thought they had heard about my pregnancy and wanted to reach out. I was a little happy. When I was in university, I informed them that I lived there. My contact number and everything else had changed since then. I was 5 months in. I spoke to my husband about it, and he was very hesitant about that letter. He tried to explain his perspective to me, and it made sense. They hadn't reached out to me for years, and now they've popped up out of nowhere. I guess I was a little more than happy that they had reached out. It blinded me for a moment. He asked me if he could read the letter first, just in case there were some inappropriate things in there. I didn't mind. He was very careful with everything around me, especially since I was pregnant. My aunt soon came 2 to 3 days later with the letter, and it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. My husband read it, and his face was full of disgust. I had never seen him so angry toward anyone. He gave the letter to my aunt and just came and hugged me. I asked him what was written, and he just looked at me with so much sadness and hugged me again. He told me that I shouldn't read it and that it was disgusting. I wanted to get it over with, so I just held his hand and asked my aunt to read it aloud. My parents had lost their own house. They were kicked out because of their dear daughter. Before I had left, I knew that they had put the house in her name to fund her lavish wedding with her now divorced husband. She had mortgaged the house. My parents knew about it, and they had put in their own money too. Now they're asking me to pay them back the money I supposedly owe them for taking care of me for so many years. My sister's ex-husband now refuses to pay the mortgage off, and she can't afford to either. I just sat there with a blank face. My husband's arms were still around me, rubbing my back. It was just a pure disappointment. I went to sleep crying that day, and I felt bad about it. I didn't want to make my baby sad because of my selfish parents. I had, but they were going to get payback. I wasn't going to be nice about it. I was happy, and I wanted to continue to be happy. I wasn't going to let them come in and have their way. They did get a response, but from my lawyer. It was a warning that if they sent me any more letters and tried to contact me again, they would be sued for harassment. They also got another letter attached from my lawyer informing them of child neglect. I made sure to let them know that I didn't owe them anything. From the clothes that I wore to the food that I ate to the house that I owned, it was all me. Sure, after I got married, it was both me and my husband's hard work and efforts, but before that, I worked and put myself through school and college all by myself. I landed a job and got promoted because of the hard work that I put in. They weren't here for any of it. They neither supported nor paid for any of it. Also, the scraps I made sandwiches from and their leftovers that I barely ate didn't count as food or care, so I owe them nothing. I also told them that they contacted the wrong child. The child they owed was their dear daughter who mortgaged the house they put in her name. Since they've dug the hole therein, they can climb out of it by themselves. Update 1, 2 months later. I'm close to my delivery date now. I thought I would update you on my current situation. This will be the last update. My parents haven't contacted me. From what I know, my sister gave the house to the bank. I don't know if they owe anyone anymore, but they're back to where they started. NTA. OP went through too much. Did they seriously have the guts to ask her for money that their little princess lost? Bad things happen to bad people. NTA. I hope you have a safe delivery. Next story. I'm still fuming over this, so forgive me if this post isn't perfectly put together. I just need some third-party insight. I, 26, female, power of a 28-year-old sister. Let's call her J. J is a mother to 3 kids, age 4, 7, and 8 years old. The father is a really absent parent and not around much. He works the night shift and then sleeps all day. I feel bad for her because it definitely isn't a fair situation, and she doesn't get any time to herself. Anyway, the situation is as this. My sister invited me to hang out on Saturday night. I agreed to come around and hang out with her, but she said she would have to leave to run an errand at some point. Cool. She said she'd be half an hour, so could I look after the sleeping youngest child while she quickly nipped out? I reluctantly agreed. The other 2 kids had been dropped off at our parents' for the weekend, so I understood she would want some time to run an errand, and she normally wouldn't have time for. As long as it was only half an hour. She promised it would be. I come over, we chat and catch up and watch a movie. It's really pleasant until she says she has to leave for that errand and leaves me instructions on what to do in case the kid wakes up, but says to just call her because she's only around the corner. I'm really on edge about it because I struggle a lot with really bad anxiety and panic disorder, which I'm currently in therapy and experimenting with meds to manage. However, we haven't found anything that really works yet. She knows this and knows I would really panic and cannot look after a kid for longer than she initially promised. I'm just not there mentally to be able to deal with crying, for example. Anyway, half an hour passes and she isn't back yet. 45 minutes. I call her and ask if everything is okay and when she will be back, and she answers after multiple rings. She said something came up and she'd be another hour, maybe an hour and 15. I basically lost my temper and said if she's not back in 15 minutes, then I'm leaving. She said I wouldn't do that and to please just stay there, and hung up. At this point, I'm on the verge of having a panic attack, so I do my breathing exercises, ring her husband, leave a message when he doesn't answer, text him about the situation as well, and also text my mom and leave about 15 minutes as I said. Apparently, my sister didn't come home for another 2 hours, and when she did, her husband was with the child, and they are both fuming. He got my message 15 minutes after I left, so 30 minutes after I sent it. And now both of them are refusing to talk to me, saying I endangered the child's life. I feel like me staying would have been worse because the kid slept through it all, and a panic attack may have woken him up to find me a dysfunctional mess. Aida here? Esh. Your sister shouldn't have left her kid with someone incapable of taking care of a kid. She can get charged with abandonment. You left a 4-year-old alone, putting his life in danger and also possibly risking legal trouble. How far away do your parents live? Could you not have called them? Called any local friends? Called the damn cops? YTA. You don't leave a 4-year-old by themselves in a house. Anything could happen. I hope you never have kids.